low performers and at the individual level. Now we talk about at the team level, how do you be thoughtful about how you design your organization? We're joined today by our great featured guest, Heidi Gibson. Heidi, welcome. How are you?
I'm awesome. I will admit that I'm still waking up a little bit, but
That's totally fair.
I'm very excited to share my learnings today.
Awesome. Great. We're really excited to have you. If you could tell folks maybe like 60 seconds about some of your recent product experience, that would be great.
Sure. I recently joined Adobe about a month ago, where I am actually embarking on this exact exercise again. So all of this is relevant for me. I'm leading product-led growth, which is really a new discipline there, sitting between marketing and product. And so right in the mix of it. And that's for the Document Cloud business, which is a $5 billion business, which is kind of exciting. 40 years old and figuring out how to disrupt ourselves. I spent a year at Typeform, which is based in Barcelona. So I got to travel to Barcelona once a quarter, running core product over there. And that's what we'll be talking about today. I spent 5 years at GoDaddy before that, where I really pioneered growth teams, product growth teams. I can see some folks I worked with there here. Hello. So I'm looking forward to getting heckled by the people that know me. Please do so. And I've overall been doing product for 20 odd years. I took 5 years off to open a small local restaurant chain and become a chef. So I have an alter ego, which is the commander-in-chief of the American Grilled Cheese Kitchen. So if anyone has questions about grilled cheese, I'm here for you.
Okay, so we have some Q&A topics just to precede: grilled cheeses and melts, Barcelona tips. So like we could definitely start a thread on everyone's top recommendations in Barcelona, just to give some ideas to folks here. So that's awesome. Thank you so much for that intro. Let's talk today about your time at Typeform. So we're going to talk through one long case study, but it's kind of broken into these two subparts. First, talking about organizational design, then to kind of talking about owners versus facilitators. Again, these are kind of to the room. These are two of the highlights of the module content. The goal of today is to kind of highlight one or two concepts. It's not a review of the content. That takes time that you need to kind of time block on your calendar app of choice. So for us, it's to how do we illustrate this, bring it to life, show it in the real world, and how it happened in this case at Typeform. So with that, let's dive in and talk organizational design at Typeform. Heidi, tell us a little bit about kind of Typeform as a business. Maybe people might be familiar with it, potentially just as consumers. Tell us a little bit more about the company and what it was like when you joined.
Yeah, for those that aren't familiar with Typeform, you probably have filled out a Typeform at some point. A decent portion of the population has. Typeform is pretty straightforward. It's a form building tool. So it's pretty horizontal in application, primarily used by small businesses. It's very easy to use, no code, super simple way to build a form. Forms are used for market research, feedback, lead generation, a whole number of different things, but primarily B2B. And it's a 12-year-old company. Was about 300 people when I joined, running about 65 million ARR. And the goal was, let's go big. So really looking to expand and grow rapidly. It's as I said, a fairly mature product that had product market fit, but in this kind of specific niche. The product team was mostly in Europe, but some in US. I'm based in the US. So we had, during the pandemic, there'd been a big shift from Europe only to now across US and Europe, and increasingly into other geos as well.
Interesting. So you have kind of like a company that had some existing kind of growth and really wanted to amp it up ahead of an IPO.
Yep. And had grown very organically before that.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting inflection point that a lot of companies see, where they have had not accidental success, but like a little less systemic in their approach, and they've had some great success to date. Here, about $65 million in ARR. And then they said, okay, now we need to kind of like systematize this, figure out what's working, figure out what's not, so that we can more easily accelerate to a higher milestone. And that's kind of where you came in, and you kind of diagnosed kind of what you saw was going on. Tell us about kind of what you found the product org to be. I kind of titled this, the product org was maybe a little disorg. What did you see there? And what was interesting there?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about the product org. First, I actually want to make a comment about product strategy, because something I've learned the hard way is you need to understand your product strategy and what it is you're trying to do before you get into designing an organization to deliver that strategy. And when you're working through your organization, that's a North Star to keep coming back to is what's the strategy, what are the priorities, what is it we want to do, get done in the next year? And that will help you kind of make decisions and trade-offs and things along the way, which you will have to make. So I was simultaneously kind of assessing the product org, which had some tactical issues, which I very quickly heard about from everyone, and also assessing the state of the product strategy. So we had these very ambitious goals, as I mentioned, to accelerate our growth. And what I wasn't clear on when I first joined is, can we just do more of what we're doing better, or do we really need to do something else, right? Is that going to take us to where we need to go? And do we understand what's going to take us to where we need to go? And so I kind of did those two things in parallel. But the basic state of the product organization, around 15 PMs, I found that it was very layered. So we had situations where there was, one kind of junior PM reporting to a senior PM, reporting to a group PM, reporting to a director, reporting to me, reporting to a CPO. We had a CPO who had joined just a couple months before I did. I actually followed her over from GoDaddy, Irana Wasti, for those of you who know her. I know there's a few who do. And so she had a much larger remit than just the product org. So she was running performance marketing and support and a whole number of areas. So she brought me in to focus specifically on the product org. And she had a number of other people kind of working across all of it. We were also doing fundraising in the middle of this, so that was taking up a lot of her time.
Busy. Yeah.
So she was, involved, but somewhat tangentially, just to mention. So those layers were one issue that I noticed right away. And my concern there was we had these little silos of people and a lot of kind of overlap and management layers. Everyone wanted to be a manager. And when I started poking on, okay, why does everyone want to be a manager? It's because they believe that that's how they would get a promotion. So another issue was, okay, we need to reset expectations around how you get a promotion. We need to make sure that everyone's got a path to growth. And that is whether or not you become a manager, right? Yeah. When I polled the team, and so I went and interviewed all the product managers in the company, not all of whom reported to me. So I went and talked to everyone and what do you think our strategy is? What's working? What's not, right? And just start getting an idea. I heard very different ideas of what the strategy was. Mostly I heard, I don't know what it is. Teams were very autonomous. So they had, engineering in particular, had prized autonomy over outcomes or anything else. And when I asked what's the most important thing, it was that we can act autonomously. And I think that was probably an overcorrection from some earlier issues.
Yeah, we can certainly go back to that previous slide in a second if you'd like, but I just wanted to kind of focus on the slide as you're talking about some of the challenges that you were seeing, especially around autonomy being a major import without necessarily alignment on goals. You want to talk more on this kind of like some of the strategic gaps that you were seeing?
Yeah, that autonomy and all of this is a balance, as I'm sure all of you know, where you want enough autonomy that you can get things done, but you all need to be pulling in the same direction. So what I have found is that the sort of overall strategy and goals, that really needs to be top down. So there needs to be a product vision and an overarching product strategy, and that needs to be clear to everyone. And it's the responsibility of the product leaders to deliver that and to make sure everyone understands it. And if you're sitting in a role where you don't know what that is, agitate, don't take, I don't know, for an answer, or maybe this is an opportunity for you to figure out the strategy. But making sure that it's communicated over and over and over and over to everybody, to the product teams and engineering and design. So everyone needs to understand. You'll feel like you're repeating it ad nauseum. Repeat it 20 more times. Additionally, the what I found at Typeform was this very sort of beautiful, sort of ambiguous vision that hadn't been translated into an actual strategy. What are we going to do in the next year? What are the 3 most important things to do in the next year was really unclear. And each of the individual sort of feature areas, which they were organized into, each had their own set of priorities and their own audience, and were sort of tripping over each other. And there was no kind of universal coordination.
So it sounded like there was like this. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, and there were some other areas with no coverage.